In case anybody missed it, earlier today Digital Foundry uploaded a roughly 2-hour long review of the Nintendo Switch 2. This wasn't a surface level review, not like a simple first hands-on impression or anything like that. This was an in-depth hardware analysis. They play their cards out pretty early on, even with the title. They say that it's impressive, but there is a visible problem that might hold it back for the fans. So I actually got to sit down and listen to this today. I took a bunch of notes, because honestly, I figured it would be something good to summarize and break down in case somebody does not have the time to sit there and listen to 2 hours of this. It also had the added benefit of forcing me to actually pay attention while I was listening, since I needed to know what I was writing down. So starting off with a quick overview of the hardware. It's powered by NVIDIA's Tegra T2039 Drake chip, which is custom designed with next-gen in mind. It has the Ampere architecture, which is based on the same Cortex as the RTX 3000 series. It is a massive improvement over the original Switch's aging Tegra X1, and that's seen in certain features like the DLSS, as well as the more advanced rendering capabilities, like ray tracing. When in dock, performance goes up to 4K 60 frames per second with DLSS, and in handheld it's 1080p 60, and even up to 120Hz in some scenarios. As far as the RAM is concerned, you got 12GB, which is triple the Switch's 4GB, which results in faster texture streaming, better multitasking, and just general quicker load times. And the 256GB are fast and reliable. And finally, you have the bonus of the microSD Express slot for faster external memory. As far as the design and the build, they were actually pretty impressive with how strong it is. There is a 7.9-inch LCD screen compared to the Switch OLED's 7 inches. Obviously, it runs at 1080p instead of the 720, there are very slim bezels, and it has a premium look to it all around. Despite the larger display, the weight feels balanced for the most part. The kickstand's improved, it's wide, it's adjustable, and it's inspired by the OLED obviously. The shell in general feels sturdier, and it has better thermals and fan ventilation. They consider the two USB ports a major change. One is for charging and docking, and the other one supports accessories. There were no proprietary port issues like in the Wii U era, and as they mentioned earlier, with the HDMI support, it's 4K 60 output possible. Now, in the case of the controllers themselves, they mentioned that the Joy-Cons were upgrades. The magnetic attachment had less wear and tear and is easier to snap on and off, which did give a little bit of concern with how easy it could come off, but they accepted that that was just part of the technology. There were no drift issues in their testing, thanks to better sensors. But obviously, it's still early days. The HD rumble was a little bit improved, much closer to the feeling of the DualSense standard. The controllers obviously came with a dedicated game chat button. They have the push-to-talk built-in voice chat infrastructure for Nintendo Online, as well as webcam support with the optional camera accessory, which is great for streamers and multiplayer lobbies. And they noted that the mouse mode was experimental but promising, specifically that it works very well in strategy games like Civilization or creative apps and UI navigation. Now, by far, aside from a few minor complaints here and there, their biggest complaint was in regards to the display. They noted that it was a 1080p IPS LCD panel and not an OLED, largely considering it a missed opportunity, especially after the Switch OLED's praise. They kept mentioning that there was very noticeable ghosting, blur, and smearing, especially during fast camera pans and high-speed gameplay like racing and shooters, and specified that this egregious ghosting makes it worse than the original Switch. The brightness is adequate, but it's not eye-popping. The HDR is supported, but it's not very effective in handheld mode. And even in docked mode, the HDR output improves, but it's still not on par with modern OLED phones and tablets. They mentioned subtle gray smearing in uniform colored areas like the sky in Zelda or Mario Kart, and they described visual noise in games with bright color palettes. They found this to be a big issue because it's a $450 plus system marketed as premium, but the display feels like it falls short of that title, that description. And as a result, it undermines the hardware leap and hurts the games built around vibrant and smooth visuals. And they think it could affect long-term satisfaction, especially amongst handheld-only players. The battery life also varies by the type of title you're playing. You're looking at potentially 5 to 6 hours for light games like indies and weaker ports, and then falling potentially as low as 2 hours for heavy hitters like Cyberpunk and Tears of the Kingdom. But the console does have smarter thermal management, which helps sustain battery longevity. The audio has 2 front-facing stereo speakers, which is slightly better than the OLED, but not comparable to tablets like the iPad Pro. They appreciated the quality of life features in relation to the instant suspend and resume. They called it faster than ever. And the multitasking UI allows quick swapping between game chat and settings. And they liked that the virtual game cards were backwards compatible. They also really praised the backwards compatibility in general. The games were, for the most part, fully playable on the Switch 2. Some of them just automatically received minor performance boosts, with faster load times and more stable frame rates. They called the emulation layer efficient and accurate. They also highlighted that they had no issues with the cloud save transfer and the local virus option available as well. And basically, to summarize it all up, what they really loved was the major hardware lift in the CPU, GPU, RAM, and storage. They appreciated the smart design changes like the USB-C, the better kickstand, and the better controllers. They really liked the excellent performances while docked, saying some games even rivaled the PS4 Pro in quality, but they were extremely disappointed with the step down in the handheld screen, repeatedly citing the OLED model as the better option, really upset with the motion blur and the ghosting, stating that it ruined the fluidity in the handheld games. And in general, they were just very disappointed for a hybrid console that should shine in portable mode. They said if you're mostly docked, this is a good upgrade. But if you play handheld 70-80% of the time, you should really just consider waiting for a revision or like an OLED refresh, for example. Now, that's about as boring and tame of a summary that I could give you guys. I really wanted to do my best here to not add my own opinion onto it. I'm trying to make this their opinion, not mine. I just wanted to kind of send it forward because I assume a lot of people want to watch this thing, they just don't got the time to do so. The general vibes that I was getting while listening to it was pretty much a lot of the stuff that you've been hearing in most of the reviews. They were just going into further detail about it. And I do actually recommend somebody sits down and listens to what they have to say, because I think when they put their emotion on the line while discussing certain things, you'll realize just how much they appreciated something or disliked it. So like, for example, I didn't mention this in the summary, but they were praising the paddle buttons on the back of the Pro Controller as well as the joystick on the Pro Controller. They were talking about how seamless it feels and how everything just kind of naturally fits into the controller itself. They mentioned that they were disappointed of the lack of analog triggers, which that holds it back from being considered a premium product, but they still spoke pretty highly about it as how it feels. And in other ways, you can feel they just kind of felt let down in a lot of areas for what they expected from a premium console. I don't remember the exact quote, but one of them was talking about how he felt if he was one of the designers working on this, and there were certain features that they just couldn't push in handheld or docked, for example, he would have brought that question to the forefront because he feels like that would have been something that is completely doable and would have made the tech more appealing. But I do highly recommend listening to this. I think they had a very level-headed approach to it. They break it down very well. They just delve deeper into the examples. They go way further into it than the bullet points that I'm sharing. So if you got a long drive and you're interested in this stuff, or you just got time to kill, put it on. I think it's worth your time. But if you just wanted a quick summary, well, that's what I was providing for you. In any case, I think I'm actually done for now. That was a very long video to listen to, and between pausing it and writing everything down, I need to take a nap. Once again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.